Hi, this is Lee with ATutsPlus.com, and in the first part of this tutorial, we'll be creating some smoke effects and compositing those effects in with some footage that I've already pre-keyed. Okay, so let's get started. First, we'll go into Layer, New, create a new solid, make comp size, click OK, and we'll go to Effects, Trap Code, choose Particular. Now this is version 2. If you don't have Particular, you can always go to redgiantsoftware.com and download a free trial. Now to save some time, I'm just going to select one of the animation presets, the smoke preset. Now this already has animation keyframes. We're not going to be using those. Select the keyframes and hit delete. We'll grab the emitter controller, drag that down below the footage. We'll want these particles to flow upwards. So let's go into the physics settings and lower the gravity. Okay, now we want to raise the size. Let's move the position, the Z position. We want this to cover the keyed footage because we are going to be using this as a alpha mat. So we'll just adjust the particles per second. Let's solo this layer. Let's raise the emitter size. Raise the particles per second. Getting closer. Let's go down into our particle settings and increase the size of the particles. Increase the life a little. Okay, and let's increase the size of the emitter a little more. And we'll go ahead and boost the particles per second. Should do it. Okay, now this will start to slow your computer down, so let's drop this down to quarter resolution. Okay, now let's add a new light. We'll go into Layer, New, Light, create a new spotlight. But first, let's go into our particular layer. Particular. And one of the new settings with version 2 is the shading settings. So we'll go into Shading, turn that on, and we'll just raise these values. Okay, now since we did change the position of the emitter in Z space, we'll also drag the Z position of the light until we start seeing the particles light up. And you can go into the light options and adjust the angle and the feather properties. Okay. Now I also set up some keyframes here where I keyframed the Y rotation and offset. So let's take a look at that. Okay, looking good. Now let's take our keyed footage and we'll duplicate this layer. Now in this layer, this is the layer that we're going to be adding most of our effects to. And this is also going to be our alpha matte for our particle layer. Now let's go into Effects, Fill, make that color white, and we'll change the track matte settings to Luma Matte, or you can set it to Alpha Matte. Okay, looking good. Not quite there yet. So let's go back to our keyed footage layer with the effects on it. And we'll be adding a few more effects. So let's turn that layer on. Go ahead and shut these other layers off. Just want to make sure that I don't have any artifacts. Looks good. I'll select that layer. Go into Effects, Time, and we're going to choose the Echo effect. I just want to go to a place in time where we have a little movement so we can see the adjustments that we're making with the echo effect. So first, we'll raise the number of echoes. And we want to blend this a little, so let's lower the decay. And we'll also want to lower the time in between the echoes. So we'll lower that. And we'll set the number of echoes to 200. Okay, that looks good. Now we'll go into Effects. We'll want to blur this out. So we'll go to Blur and Sharpen. And we're going to select CC Vector Blur. We'll set the type to Direction Fading. And we'll set the revolutions down to 0 and raise the amount. Let's increase the map softness. Let's add our next effect. Just want to blur this out a little more. So we'll go to Blur and Sharpen, Fast Blur. Repeat edge pixels. And we don't want to blur this out too much. So we'll set this to around, say, 9. Okay, now we'll go into Effects, Distort, Turbulent Displace. And this is going to help us get that smoky effect, more organic feel to it. So we'll set the displacement to bulge and set the amount to 50. It's a little too much, so let's decrease the size. Looks good. Now we want to offset the turbulence. So we'll go into the Y value here. First, let's go to the beginning of the comp and click the stopwatch, which will create a keyframe. So on your keyboard, if you want to hit U, that'll bring up the keyframes. Go to the end of the comp, and we'll just take the controller here and we'll set that above the footage. Go back to the beginning of the comp and just drag the controller down, and that'll create a simple animation. That looks good. It's really slowing the computer down, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and render this layer out, and also render out the particle layer we have as well. That'll speed along the tutorial. Okay, now that we have our rendered layers in here, should move a little quicker. So we have our keyed footage, and we're just going to make a simple mask. And set that to subtract. And feather the mask out. To get the feather properties to pull up, you would just hit F on the keyboard. Now we're going to select the mask, copy, and paste it to our layer with the effects on it. We'll just hit F and adjust the feather properties. Okay, now we'll make these 3D layers and go to the rendered particle layer, and we'll adjust the track matte and set this to alpha matte. And as you see, getting a little closer. Now let's turn our keyed footage on, keyed footage, and you can make a few copies of this. Lower the opacity, you can mask out. What I did is I masked out the face and also added inner glow on one of the layers to help it blend in with the particle layer a little better. It's pretty basic, so we'll skip over that. And here I want to show you the track matte adjustments that I've made. So I'm going to take the particle layer, duplicate that, and we're going to move this above our keyed footage. We're going to set that to Luma Matte Inverted. And this really helps blend in the layers together. We'll do the same on the second particle layer. Set that to Luma Matte, or you can set it just to Alpha Matte. Now if I turn this off, you'll see the difference here. Let's turn this off for a second. So you see, by changing the track matte, really does help blend that layer together very well. And that's looking good. Now in the next part of our tutorial, we're going to be adding some lights and effects, and also compositing in some additional smoke effects and background. So we will see you then.